This channel is for educational purposes only. Make sure you do your own due diligence before making any investments. And there is inherent risk in trading, so it's speculative. Just make sure you keep that in mind.
Hi, this is Joe Rabil. We're going to talk about the S&P and the QQQ, look at it in multiple time frames, talk about trend and momentum. And then I'm going to go and update the market conditions, including the volatility and the sentiment. And I'm also going to bring in a new overbought, oversold chart that my partner keeps up that I think is pretty important in the current environment. So let's go ahead and get into this. Before we do that, I did want to make sure I reminded you guys that if you go to rabelstockresearch.com/services, I am offering for the if you go to the coupon code and type in invest like a pro, you get a discount on my regular the research that I send to institutional investors. And so anyway, take a look at that. And let's go ahead and get into the market conditions now. And again, just make sure you hit that like button if this is the type of material content that you really like. I'd appreciate it if you do find it helpful. That really helps me out in terms of the YouTube algorithm, which would be great at this point. So anyway, if we go to the conditions over on the left, the trend and momentum actually have improved since the last time I did this. In fact, all 4 time frames are in uptrends right now. I'll go through that as well as the momentum in just a minute. The volatility is now below a declining moving average. So if we go over here, the ATR, this red line, is now declining. That's a 20-period ATR. And then the blue line is an 18-period of that ATR. And you can see that we tried to get things going and then we couldn't hold the moving average. And now that line is tipped over and we have clearly a drop in the volatility, and we have a trend to the downside in the volatility, and that would be considered a positive. Now the overbought oversold oscillator is at 79 based on the RSI 5. We've pushed our way up into this kind of overbought region again. Now, one thing I wanted to show, because we maintain other overbought, oversold oscillators that are important to us. So this is for the S&P 500. If you look at all the stocks and you put them all together, you can see that in the bottom, at the very low in February of 2020, there were about 4 or 5% of the stocks were above their 50-week moving average. And now, if you look at where we are currently, essentially 1 year later, a little bit past that, but about 1 year later, we're now at 96%. So we went from having 4% that were bullish to now only having 4% that are bearish. And so we've reached this level, and it's really the highest level. Normally, this will peak out somewhere in the mid-80s. And so I think this is pretty important to recognize that we have reached an area, an overbought area. That doesn't mean that we're going to reverse back down, but it is an area where I think there's a lot of risk if we start to turn back down from here. So I definitely wanted to bring that to your attention. Now, if we look at the sentiment jumped up this week. It went from 38 to 44% in 1 week. I mean, that's a big jump. A lot of bulls. We got more than 60% bulls again. So I just, again, when we start to look at all this information and we see what's taking place, so the backdrop type of indicators, which are sentiment, the percent of stocks above the 50, the overbought, oversold, they're getting into areas where, I think you need to be a little bit more cautious. And then if we go and look at our premium indicators, our primary indicators, the trend and the volatility, they're still okay. Now, we're not in a perfect conditioned environment because the momentum conditions aren't fantastic, but I think they're good enough at this point, and especially when we go and start looking at the moving averages. So let's go ahead and go into the trends. And so I've got the 4 time frames up, and I like to start this way, especially in the current environment, because we can see that all 4 time frames are in uptrends. The 18 is above the 40, and both lines are rising in all 4 of these time frames. And so let's just zero in on the monthly chart. And I had brought this up about a month ago, where we haven't, since this low right here, which dates back to October, we haven't made a lower low on the monthly bar chart for the S&P. And this was actually even a higher bottom. It was an inside bar, and then we made another higher low, another higher low, higher low, higher low. This was another higher low, and now we're making a significantly higher low. And so, if we got a big bar where this really got far away from this 4MA, then there'd probably be a little bit more risk of a deeper pullback or some kind of a pullback. But right now, I don't really see that. This isn't a really wide range bar or anything. It's just kind of consistently moving higher with confirmation on a MACD basis. Now, we finally saw the green DI poking up above 25. It's about time, but again, we have to realize that it had to overcome this big drop. That was massive amount of negative DI that really need to work off. And with a 13 period moving average, you're finally getting to that point where these are starting to go away, and we should start to see the green DI start to play a little bit better on the monthly. Let's go to the weekly chart. So once again, we've got this 18 and a 40 rising pretty nicely. I mean, they're about parallel. We had the last pullback. It didn't last very long. We jumped right off of it. And again, a pretty consistent move to the upside. Not any big bars here creating any sort of short-term overbought condition. It's just sort of consistently positive for the last couple weeks. One encouraging sign is that the MACD has gotten back above its signal line here. It hasn't actually confirmed with hitting a new high, but as we saw the last time, if we give it enough time and this pushes up a little bit more, it's very possible this is going to end up confirming. So we do want to watch that. But one encouraging sign is that we have made a higher high. So if I just pull up this, green DI has now pushed up, pulled back, and now you've made a higher high and you're back above the 25 level. So you took out this prior peak, and we're back above 25. So that's sort of an encouraging sign, and it's the reason why this blue line is starting to turn up. And if we notice, green stayed above red throughout this whole period. So we never really got any significant, sorry about that. We never got any significant correction that caused the red to overcome the green. So buyers have maintained control throughout, and the trend still looks okay. Let's go to the daily chart. And again, no real sign of sellers, and we've saw some pretty nice improvement in the green DI here. It took out the red, crossed above 25, and then took out the red, and now it seems to be holding, and it's strong enough to allow this blue line to start rising. Now, it hasn't gotten through 25, and we've already made a decent move. So I think we want to be on the lookout for, as this approaches 25, it'll probably provide some resistance for this trend. It's been one of those environments where ADX just has not played along because we've had a lot of kind of ratchety price action. But again, if we go and look at the weekly time frame, it's definitely stronger, and that's really the controlling time frame right now. We can take a quick peek at the hourly. Really not much change here. Pretty good ADX confirmation, very well above 25. I think this is okay. We could probably use a little bit of a pullback in the short term, and that, we're starting to see a little bit of a MACD divergence develop. So maybe we get a little bit of a pullback in the short term, but I think this 4,000 level looks like support. Let's go ahead and look at the QQQ, and I'm going to switch this back to the monthly chart, and let's just look at this all 4 time frames together. Good momentum conditions in place on the monthly, a lot better than are actually in place on the S&P. And then last week I mentioned that we wanted to see some follow through on the weekly chart off of this nice reaction at the 18. So we had started to get a little bounce, got up to this little resistance zone, and now we're back up through that, showing some follow through this week. MACD has not confirmed yet. It hasn't turned back up, and it isn't anywhere near a new high. It's very possible we're going to run into some resistance at the prior peak based on that. But if we start to look at the ADX, we got strong ADX on the monthly, and the ADX has just worked its way back down to 25 or so, 24, and green is still above red. Now, it did crisscross for a week or two, but really green is maintaining control here. I wouldn't be surprised if we spend a little bit of time consolidating sideways, but look at what's happened on the daily chart. Daily chart has taken out the red to the upside well above 25, and then we pulled back and held the red. And so it's a pretty encouraging sign what's going on in the green DI right now. Now, again, we're back up to this old high. We're a little bit overbought. It would make sense if this pulled back or consolidated. But now I would kind of look at the 324, which was resistance, probably providing support on a pullback. As long as it does that, I think that would be a pretty good sign. This market maybe wants to continue to move to the upside. Please go ahead and post any comments or questions that you have, and hit that like button for me, and we'll see you next time.